The ambulance company I worked for had a haunted ambulance, Rig 12. A lot of EMTs had their own stories about it, mostly involving weird noises coming from the patient compartment or the electronics going all haywire. But I never put much stock into paranormal stuff. My personal experience, though, comes from when my partner and I were in Rig 12 and were posted in a rural community at about 3 a.m. So, it was pitch black, and it was dead quiet. We were both dozing off in the cab, and I was in the driver's seat, and she was in the passenger seat. I woke up to a muffled voice, and initially thought it was my partner trying to wake me up. I told her I was trying to sleep and rolled over towards the window and closed my eyes again. Then I distinctly heard a man's voice say, "Oh my God, am I dying?" Followed by what sounded like heavy breathing for a couple of seconds. Then, complete silence. My partner and I both sat straight up and looked back into the patient compartment where it sounded like it was coming from. It was quiet for a couple of seconds, then we heard the clicking of oxygen bottle regulators and hissing like it was leaking. I turned on the compartment lights and we both piled out of the rig. Initially, I thought a transient may have climbed in the back while we were asleep and was messing with the stuff. So we walked around the back of the rig and opened up the doors. No one was back there. I checked both oxygen bottles and neither were opened. Needless to say, we kept the lights on the rig and didn't sleep much after that. I don't know if I believe in hauntings, but I guess it would make sense for an ambulance to be haunted. Rig 12 had been in service with various agencies for over a decade, and had probably seen its fair share of patients die in the back. I rode in it a couple shifts after that, but nothing else strange happened that I recall. I saw a shadow person once. I didn't know that's what it was called until much later, but I saw one. I was living in a house in Laguna Beach that had been there since the 1920s. In its history, it had been a speakeasy, a brothel, and a house for smuggling illegal immigrants. One day, my new wife and I were having an argument. I can't even recall what it was about, but she walked down the block to get a cup of coffee and cool off, and I stayed in the house alone. The way the house was built was incredibly haphazard. There was a bedroom and a living room on one side, then a bathroom with 2 entrances. On the other side of the bathroom was a hallway that had a window on one side and 2 bedrooms on the other. From my bedroom, I could look across the hallway into the bathroom, then through the bathroom down the other hallway. I was standing at my dresser when I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye and looked down there. There was, and honest to God, this gives me goosebumps just typing it 17 years later, a black figure. It was maybe 3 feet tall and it was only vaguely humanoid. It looked like black scribbles, like someone had scribbled a human shape but the scribbles moved, like electricity arcing or something. That's the best way to describe it. There was no sound that I could remember, and I distinctly remember when I saw it, I wasn't afraid. I was just like, what the heck? Then, it noticed me looking at it. I can't say it turned around, it just focused on me, I guess. Then, I was scared. I didn't move, didn't scream, I didn't do anything. I was just frozen, because it just freaking came at me, and it rushed down the hall towards me. I have no idea what its intent was, but as soon as it entered the bathroom, the door closest to me slammed shut. Then I screamed. I yelled for my wife, but she wasn't home. I ran outside into the daylight, and I didn't go back into the house until she got there 10 minutes later. It freaked me out. I was babysitting my niece one night when I was at my brother's place, and they had the baby camera set up so I could see her on the little TV it came with, and I was sitting there studying and I started to doze off. All of a sudden I started hearing a whispering and quickly realized it was coming from the monitor. Now, I initially thought it was some feedback or something, but when I looked at the screen, there was a dark figure standing near my niece's crib. I have never been more terrified in my life, but the shadow was clearly there and it had not been there before. I ran as fast as I could to my niece's room and looked around and saw nothing, but I took her the hell out of there and went back to the TV, and the shadow was gone. I told my brother what had happened, and he quickly pulled me aside and said don't mention it to my sister-in-law because she would freak out. But he confided into me that he had seen the same thing several times now, and he had heard the same whispering too. They stayed in that house for about 4 more years, and when my niece was just learning to talk, she would tell her mom about her special friend. To this day, it scares the crap out of me just to think about it. When they moved out, my brother told me my niece had become inconsolably sad because she would miss her friend. Her mom would tell her she could bring her along, but all she would say was he couldn't leave the house. We have never to this day told her about the dang shadow, and she apparently never saw it.